that's not really the case. I think that we see in Egypt, we see the Arab Spring, we see Occupy Wall Street, we see these things having a massive effect on society. Like, they don't win, they don't necessarily, I mean, sometimes they overthrow the government, and you find that the government they put in place isn't really that much better. But other times you see that a big major corporation who has the power and has the lawyers to do whatever they want crosses the line just a little bit and suddenly starts uploading your address book from your iPhone into their servers, and people get pissed, and people start tweeting about it, and people start talking about it, and people stop using their products, and that company realizes, I can't keep doing this if I want to continue to grow, and they change. And so that ability for that outlaw and that outsider to have that revolution still exists. WikiLeaks is proof of that. Like there's so many examples of that still being able to happen. So it's not that far out of reality. But what we are beginning to see, I believe, is that there is no utopian society, and there never was, and there never will be. And that's a hard fact that we just need to accept. To use Star Wars, I know that people like to pretend that the first two movies didn't exist. But I thought there were a couple of good things in there, and one of the good things in there was in the classic, the original, movies 4, 5, and 6, or whatever they are. They talk about the Old Republic like it was this amazing place. And, oh, you should have been at the Old Republic. It was awesome. There were Jedi everywhere, and everybody was peace and love, and everyone had tons of money and food, and it was great. And then you go back in time and you see the Old Republic, and you see like, well, Anakin was sold as a slave, and that was okay. And the gigantic trade federation is embargoing this poor planet, and they can't really do anything about it. And when they go to the Imperial Senate, which is supposed to be this bastion of good, it's a broken system. It's a broken system full of lobbyists and bureaucrats and special interests that are controlling everything. And you realize that, while maybe, what's his name, Darth Sidious, the Emperor, or whatever, maybe he wasn't the best option to fix that. That system was broken, and somebody needed to change it. And, the Empire did some good stuff. They had good police, they organized, they got rid of the Senate. That Senate was a mess. And trains run on time.
The old Republic.
Well, I'm sure that if we went back in time to the old Republic, there was a mess too. That's the thing. We need to realize that society is not perfect, and it's not going to be, because people are not perfect. And that's okay if you can incorporate that to yourself and accept it.
I think, I don't know if it was Jeanne or John mentioned the idea of writers being on the frontier along the Western Ocean. I think that is actually something that is right at the very beginning of science fiction and speculative fiction. We were talking on the Highland panel last night about revolution and creating a new world and having that competency to do it. I think when you look at cyberpunk, you have that competency of existing successfully outside the establishment. And I think that's a long-standing tradition of being on the edge, which I find actually very encouraging. I mean, despite the fact that in Star Wars it was great when the rebels won. In Firefly they lost, and then all of a sudden you start seeing how do we live when things are breaking down and not in the way we can live with it. I think I'm sure I'm not answering the question, but I'm just very excited about what we're talking about here. But it's the whole you're talking about outlawry and Robin Hood and living as a standstill rat and screaming from but I still see a lot of those same traditions from in cyberpunk.
And I mean, sort of getting more back to what you were actually first talking about, but in terms of can we still write optimistic science fiction? I mean, I think sure we can, and I mean, Nancy DeVry actually did an anthology recently called Shine, which was specifically all intended to be optimistic science fiction. And I mean, sure we can do that, but I mean, I don't know how much value there is in it. I mean, sure, it's entertaining to read about an optimistic society, or maybe it's even a little encouraging. But I mean, I think a lot of science fiction writers like to write stories that can have more of a sort of a social effect or something. And so I think we certainly have more capability of doing that with something that's just it's not really like something that we can actually aspire to, because it's never going to happen. And so I think a lot of science fiction writers are sort of discouraged from writing that because it seems like such a pie in the sky thing that it's not interesting to write about. And I think that's the other thing about utopian stories is that, well, if it's a utopia, then where's the conflict going to be? Because it's like, everything's perfect, right? But yeah, I mean, and obviously there's a difference between optimistic stories and utopias, but yeah, I think it's just like a lot of most writers find the sort of social commentary of dystopian fiction much more interesting.
But it can also be not necessarily that it's optimistic, but that the writer is pretty well, how if we try this for change? It needn't be optimistic, but it's like, here's a solution, let's try that one, which I find encouraging, if not absolutely optimistic solution.
Or not even here's a solution, but you look at like Cavelos, who's taking real problems that we're facing now and extrapolating them a little bit down the line. It's very easy to say like, oh, global warming, whatever, the world's a degree warmer, like the winter's not so harsh, and not really think about it. But when he writes a book about how like whole cities are underwater and people are having to change their whole lifestyle in order to deal with that, and you see like people struggling in that, I like to think that maybe that's not going to come to pass. That we're going to course correct before that, but having people show you that that ugly thing that could happen if we don't deal with it, I think goes a long way to help stop it from happening. In the same way that in the 80s, like all the stories that were based on like there's a nuclear war, and then like those were what scared the crap out of everybody and made us realize that we needed to pull away from this race to the end. It doesn't turn into a perfect society, but that we're never going to get that. And you also look at books like Game of Thrones, where and I hope I don't spoil anything for them. Like bad guys kind of win, at least in the beginning, and then you realize in the next book life goes on, and people still have to plant crops and live and do things, and that teaches you a lot about how to live under something that you're not happy with, but also work towards change. So
Scaring people is not always a bad thing.
yeah, sometimes it's really helpful.
Use those anxieties.
Okay, so let's switch over to fantasy now. So thinking about modern developments in fantasy, modern works in the last 10 or 20 years, what do you think fantasy is saying about our present world, about our anxieties and moods? How are today's fantasy authors answering the question of who are we and what is our place? And which answers do readers seem the most attracted to? Urban fantasy and paranormal romance are obviously major areas for discussion here. Works that have vampires, werewolves, and ghosts that aren't intended to be scary would also be included here. So, what do you think of modern fantasy is saying about us and our moods and our anxiety? John?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a hard one. I mean, especially when you think about like urban fantasy and sort of werewolf shagging, or whatever. It's like I have no idea what that has to say about anything. But I mean, it's like it's I mean, to some extent, I mean, you can sort of say, well, it's sort of focusing on this escapism and sort of retreating from problems of society instead of actually trying to do anything about it or commenting on it at all. And in and of itself, that's sort of a comment and it's like, oh, this is too horrible to write about. I'm going to write this, fanciful thing. And it's like, wouldn't it be great if vampires and werewolves you can be friends with them, or whatever, But yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, there's like, like Peter was mentioning Game of Thrones. I mean, I think there's some sort of there's probably something there in these like grand epics and sort of going from the sort of chosen one hero thing to the more sort of gray, all gray characters like in George Martin. It's like that sort of comments on society a little bit. That, well, yeah, we don't really have heroes anymore, and whenever we do have heroes, they get torn down, or they can't stay heroes for long. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, I'm going to give the panelists feedback first, and then if anyone wants to chime in.
I think it's important to look at different subgenres in the medias because there are the paranormal romance, for example, I think is very different from other types. And I think, I hope I'm not putting my foot in and offending someone here, but but sparkly vampires are kind of another subset altogether. And the way that, I mean, they're consumed, they're meant as YA, but I have an awfully large number of adult friends who read it, and I am puzzled by it, because it's, based on what I understand the character, the protagonist, she's sort of giving up all autonomy. I'm like, hell no. Don't do that. That's the wrong answer.
Have you read The Twilight Books?
I've seen a couple of movies.
All right, that's fair.
And I try, except when I'm like,
I don't know. I feel like a lot of people talk shit about Twilight, and like having never read them, and a lot of them haven't. It turns out they haven't read them, and I haven't read them. So I kind of like try to stay away from that to a certain extent. Like
getting that out of the way right now.
no, but if you see the movies, that's legit.
I've made an effort, but I'm trying to think about urban fantasy, and to a large extent, it has to do with how we encounter someone who may look like us, but is very different and dangerous, definitely. And how do we think about that? I mean,
I thought you were going to say, and how do we have sex?
We have sex with the other all the time in our society.
Great.
and that's often a way of breaking down barriers.
Yeah.
And that's, so it's okay. There's just one spirit. No, let's not work out. But anyway, is there a way of getting to? Is it a way of with the other? Is it a way of actually giving into your fears? Saying, okay, this horrible thing is coming, but it's very pleasurable, and I'm just going to get off to it. It's a curious thing. I think it's a lot of different shades. For me, the characters I read about in the Fangborn, I have vampires, werewolves, and werewolves. And for me, they're the good guys. They're the X-Men. They're working to protect humanity in secret. But for me, the werewolves in particular, it's about assuming power, about assuming your own power in the face of a changing world, and what you do when you feel like your opponent becomes a L-bar again. So I'm at this point, I'm only up with the others. It's not the actual style of the writing, but the idea is the same.
Most of my experience with urban fantasy is through television and movies. I've never really been much of an urban fantasy reader. But if you take something like True Blood, which I think everybody has seen, the beauty of that show is that you have this huge ensemble cast. And I mean, you can't swing a cat in Bon Temps without hitting some supernatural creature. It's like everybody's something. But that ensemble cast, everybody is different. Everybody has their own problems. Everybody has their own drama. Everybody has their own anxiety. Nobody is perfect. Nobody is clean. But in the end, most of them try and do the right thing. But sometimes doing the right thing means hurting somebody else, or you give in to your urges for 1 minute, and then you have this huge mess that comes of it. You sleep with the wrong person once, and it can tear down everything else in your life. And that is what real life is like. And we can throw in a couple of vampires and werewolves and werepanthers or whatever to spice it up. But the reality is that we have to encounter people who are different from us every day, increasingly, and accept that, deal with it. And whether it's vampire rights or gay rights, it's the same issue. And sometimes stepping outside of it and making it about vampires lets you have a look at it and think about it in a way that maybe when it's too close to home, you can't. And so I think that there's a real power in that. For regular fantasy, I think fantasy has gotten a lot darker. I don't know, maybe if it's gotten a lot darker or if the fantasy that I read has gotten a lot darker. When I was growing up in the 80s, I was reading Piers Anthony and Terry Brooks, and I guess Robert Jordan was the 90s, but like Raymond Feist, and you have all of these like clear-cut, black and white, single protagonist goes through an adventure and like has a power he doesn't understand, and the relentless villain who's super powerful is pursuing him, but at the last minute he figures out how to work his power, and good trumps evil, and blah, 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 done. And that was great when I was 13 or 15. But as I got older and started to understand the realities of the world, that wasn't enough for me anymore. I still love the setting, I still love the genre, but I was ready for something a little more grown up. And so now I've moved on to Scott Lynch and Joe Abercrombie and Power Office and Brent Weeks and these other authors who are showing you that, or George Martin, who were like, either the hero gets torn down, or the hero lasts long enough to become a villain. And, or the hero had villainous tendencies all along, but in the end they managed to do something that was relatively good. Or the hero, or you look at Joe Abercrombie, like, you know, the one person who actually tries to be a good person gets stomped into the ground, you know, and those are realities that we face in the world every day, and when you can explore it when it's somebody else's problem in a book and put it down and think about it, then that can affect how you live your life day to day, and that's important. So I think that grown-up fantasy, which a lot of people rebel against. I mean, I got a hate mail letter from somebody recently that was just, you know, like, you put sexual violence in your book, and then, like, I threw the book away because that's garbage and shouldn't be literature. And I was like, well, you know what? Read an NYC police blotter any night, and you'll see way worse than anything I ever put in the 2 lines in this 500-page book where I mentioned sexual violence. But it's something that people are still repelled by, but sometimes you need that. You need to feel real emotion and feel real horror at something before you realize that you can't bury your head in the sand about it.
I like that you're talking about in terms of this is what happened in life. You know, no one's perfect. You make bad choices. There's that the one line that came screaming was from Buffy the Vampire Slayer when she's just in troubles with him. She's gone there with Angel. He's turned into a demon, and she goes and said, you know, I met this guy, and then he turned. We got close, and then he turned out not to be what I thought he was, and that.
And her mom totally understood.
Yeah.
Like, her mom had no idea that she was sleeping with a vampire who actually did start killing people, but she was like, you slept with him and he changed, didn't he?
Yeah.
And like, he was that.
I've been there.
Yeah, it was amazing.
The sparkly vampire from steampunk. One of the reasons the sparkly vampire is in the werewolves is the stories flourish on conflict. And you cannot really get the same taboo out of any sexual coupling between real people nowadays that you could get a century ago with all sorts of conflicts. So we introduce werewolves and vampires and stuff, partly to reintroduce taboos. As far as in steampunk, you're going back to the Victorian era. You can put all sorts of conflict. You can have characters going around saying, you can't do that because you're a girl. That gives you lots of conflict.
Yeah, the Diamond Age is such a great example of that. I think that is steampunk or proto-steampunk because you have class issues being introduced to that too, which I adore. Most fun. I'm sorry, the Diamond Age, Neil Stevenson?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't want to redirect John for your initiative, but also open to everyone else. John, and I don't mean this to be titillating. You talked before about sex, and in terms of paranormal romance. Well, the panel's been talking consistently about science fiction and fantasy evolving to deal with how social mores and social experiences change. Is it possible that the advent of paranormal romance is a reflection of evolving sexual attitudes, in that we are a more sexually liberated society, and it's to the point where things that would have been considered perverted, now it's kind of okay to get your kink on. Yeah, I'm turned on by the idea of having sex with a werewolf, you know, and that's something that I can now explore in literature, whereas if you've done that in the 80s, that would have been like, whoa, dude, what are you doing? Do you think that that's true? Do you?
That's an interesting idea, actually. I hadn't actually considered that, but I mean, that does make some sense, I think. Although it's like a little weird because I think, like, you know, because like I guess like if you have like a nervous fantasy where like the characters have sex with like a werewolf in their human form, it's like, well, everybody's fine with that. But then like I know there's some that where they actually like they do the werewolf on, you know, the werewolf.
To get their wolf on.
Yeah, and you know, and then you get into like an area where it's like, you know, it's almost like bestiality, like, and I don't think we've evolved as a society to think that bestiality is okay, and I don't know that we should ever, but you know, it's a little weird. I mean, and I mean, I think the vampire thing is probably more of an exploration of maybe what you're talking about. So I think that you were saying like whether it's gay rights or vampire rights or whatever. I mean, I think that might make sense. But
Vampires been associated with sex from almost the beginning, and before that, second line, so I think that line is absolutely.
It's a question way back then.
Do you think also, or I think also that, I mean, part of what's going on is we've progressed societally in terms of diversity, where, I mean, okay, yes, in 60s through 80s, you were kind of like, well, if you're going to date outside of your own class or race structure, then that's okay, but you didn't actually socialize. Whereas nowadays, you've got so much of a case of all of the cultures mixing and bumping up against each other. That's a lot of what I see going on in Twilight and the other paranormal romances is, it's not just, oh, you're dating a vampire, it's, oh, okay, well, if you're dating a vampire, then you have to understand all this vampire culture stuff in order to be able to do that, or all of this werewolf stuff, or whatever. So it's much more about, or going beyond just, well, we're together, to that whole, all of these cultures sliding together, and how do you make them merge so that there isn't conflict all the time?
I think that's a perfect example of what we're trying to encourage with a lot, with cultures. You have freedom of speech, and one person's, beliefs is enough for someone else. How do you sort that out?
It's not just that, it's when you're in a new relationship with somebody, you're not just in a relationship with that person, you're in a relationship with their people. If you want to be with somebody, if you want to really be with somebody, you got to get on with your family, you got to get on with your friends, you got to expand yourself. And when that is a culture that's different from you, where you have to step outside your comfort zone, that can be really difficult. And I wonder if some of it comes from the fact that most of the big publishing houses are based in New York. And in New York, or even in Boston, or any like coastal port cities, where you have different cultures mixing every single day. Like I can't, I walk outside my house and there's a Pakistani guy living across the street, and there's a woman in a burqa coming down, and there's Hasidic Jews on the next block over, and I've got like the crazy like Italian guys talking like this, like and like everyone, and like we all get along as a society and rub up against each other, and that I think has taken a lot of the taboo away from just regular, guess who's coming to dinner was shocking back in the day, not so much now, but like when guess who's coming to dinner, like, oh yeah, it's somebody who might kill you and suck all your blood out. It adds a new dimension to it that lets you tell that same story again and still reflect on the issues that it brings to the table.
I want to throw in a different angle, which is just that I agree with what Peter said earlier, that I think a lot of this urban fantasy and paranormal romance is meant to deal with issues that young people have as they start dating and start romancing. And then a lot of it is positive and an escape. People are talking about it's very dark. And yeah, there are dark works like that, but they're also very positive. I don't want to say positive, I guess just cheerful. Yes, not hopeless. Because I think a lot of these, if you're a horror person, you realize that all of our horror archetypes have been deep-toothed, deep-fanged, and made into these desirable, pretty things. So they're taking the fear out of things that have been fearful. Boys are fearful, I can tell you if you're a young girl. And vampires are fearful, but no, they're not. They're actually nice, and they really don't drink the blood of humans. They just drink the blood of animals because they don't want to hurt anybody. And so they're making things friendlier and easier to get along with, and maybe making the alienated individual feel better because, hey, there's all these strange beings around, and they're stranger than I am, and so I shouldn't feel so bad like I don't fit in if somebody doesn't friend me on Facebook. And they're kind of taking the prince from fairy tales and making the prince into this cool and exotic and interesting thing, so that if we feel too stupid now to fall for a fairy tale, because that's, old school and we shouldn't, that's silly, that's for kids, but if the prince is a vampire, so now he's beautiful and charming and rich and intelligent, but he's also got his powers and stuff, then it makes it okay to believe in the Prince Charming fairy tale fantasy, I think, in a way. And so I think a lot of this is escapism, and it's very showing that there is hope and that things aren't as scary and as difficult as they might seem. So that I just think that's part of it that hasn't been expressed.
There's a change. There's a change in what people want out of those stories too. I think, where I don't know if it's necessarily cheerful or positive, but deep down, I think all of us, or pretty much all of us, want to fall in love with somebody so deeply and so hard that we're willing to fuck up the rest of our lives to be with that person. And deep down, that's what everybody really wants. You know, that's been the storytell romance forever, and it used to be happily ever after. But we've come to realize that the reality is, like, when you want to be with somebody that much, like, it's going to cause a lot of turbulence in your life, and you have to be prepared to deal with that. You have to be strong enough to deal with that. And there's a pride in being like, I love this person so much that I'm going to go through hell to be with them, and that's okay because it's worth it. And deep down, we don't want that. And so I think it reflects a new desire rather than, or a more realistic desire than those old storytell romances where it's just like, oh, life was hard, and then this handsome man came along and took me off my feet, and everything's great.
I think so, that in terms of the romance you lose yourself, you literally lose your life and become no longer housebroken. But it can also be an extension of fears for what happens after you. What happens after you meet that prince? It's like, okay, I met this dangerous guy. He was scary, we worked it out, and now we have to live the rest of our lives together. We have to be divided and this love. Well, what happens when we have to start dividing chores and stuff like that? How do we live our lives?
I need to do laundry.
Yeah, well, now, who's going to do the lawn? You know, it's daylight out. Who's going to, you know, maybe it's just like big.
I think the baby with the vampire.
Exactly.
One other point I wanted to bring up, a lot of urban fantasy has a female protagonist, great majority, and I was thinking a little bit about how the female protagonist often has powers, certain powers of some kind that she may discover during the course of the story. And is it that, so I'm wondering what this says about our vision of women, our feelings about powerful women. Can women be powerful only in a fantasy setting? You know, is it our dream to be powerful because we don't feel powerful in reality? Or is it a reflection that we do feel powerful? So any thoughts that you have about that, the image of women in urban fantasy and how that reflects our current mood, anxiety, image of how women are?
You know, I think some of what you're saying is probably there, you know, in terms of the power, but I'm not sure all of it's entirely positive. I mean, at least from the covers, I mean, like, you know, the covers, make them, you know, they dress them in this very provocative way, like, and, you know, like, their back is never covered, and so, you know, they're always wearing, like, a half shirt, and, like, this sort of
Fantastic house.
Yeah, I mean, to, like, show off as much as possible, and it's just like, I don't know that that's an entirely positive thing, 'cause it's like, you know, but yeah, I mean, I think probably some of what you're saying is in there, although it's any positive that you would derive from that might be sort of undone by the sort of, you know, sort of hypersexualized depictions that they have there in general. I mean, basically is what they're saying on the covers. I haven't actually read them, but I mean, from what I have read, that's what it's like in those cases as well.
Have you seen the Jim Blackpool?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, right.
That was really, what he did was he had some of the covers, and he was not his, you know, female parents being strong and everything, but he started looking at the covers, and then realized when someone pointed out that he had been more than this. And so he, God bless him, put on a short t-shirt and started doing some of the same poses, and he realized that not only could he not do them the next day, he was in agony because everything hurt, because of the stretching and the can't which he never liked about it. Those fabulous.
Yeah.
Don't go to that blog unless you're prepared to have images in your head that you will not.
That was brilliant. But I think the covers are always, I think claiming your sexuality is fine. I think that's kind of what I've talked before about this being a way of playing, I think it's an extension of romance, where in the early romance it was like, okay, I want something sweeping out my feet, take me away from all this, and maybe I'll have adventures, maybe I'll be an active person in that. And I think this is something like, okay, well, I'm on my own, and I'm not going to be sort of subsumed under a relationship, but here's my powers, and this is what I can do. So yeah.
I feel like it's an exploration of the changing society, the roles of women in society now. Part of it look at the popular fantasy stories, you look at Buffy the Vampire Slayer, you look at True Blood or the Charlotte Harris books or things like that, you have this female protagonist that all the men in the story are still trying to protect. Everybody's trying to protect Sophie Stackhouse. Every man in that town would drop everything to protect Sophie Stackhouse. And they hide things from her and they lie to her to keep her safe. You know, that's too harsh for you to know. And when she finds those things out, she kind of looks at them and says, you know what, I could handle that all along. And by lying to me, you created this huge rift over something that you just told me about it, like, I'm stronger than you think. And that, I think, really reflects how we continue to treat women in society now. I mean, it's certainly better than it was, and it's going to continue to get better, but there's still this kind of feeling like, you can't carry heavy things, you know, and I feel it myself, like every time I'm with a woman who's carrying something, like, my mom saw me right now, she'd kill me, I bet. And that is something that we society need to get over. Men and women both need to get past that in order to get to the next level where people are truly equal. And so I think having these strong female protagonists, while the covers are sexualized, but that's a marketing thing. That's not necessarily reflecting the content. But the content is that women can handle shit too. And a lot of times the men's efforts to shield them from it just make matters worse. Whereas if they'd just been upfront about the problem from the start, they could have fixed it together.
One of the things I really like about this thing, you mentioned that all the men are trying to protect Sophie or Bobby. All the women are trying to too. And what I really like is they're showing these communities of women working together as friends and not, they're not the housewives of whatever. I really, really like that. I think that's also a good thing because that's not something you've seen a lot of. I'm glad to see.
As a Phantom Double Day Gal, we published this anthology, The Ultimate Witch, and most of the stories were about the empowerment of women. And the art came back from the artist with big push-up breasts popping out of the top of the dress, and I said, what the heck is this? This is, mostly women are going to buy this anthology, and plus, what is this offensive image you got on the cover of this anthology? So I made the artist do a breast reduction on the cover. So there's lots of things where the inside and the outside have nothing to do with each
So the
other.
cover model was her back, thank you.
There's a question here.
It's really, the covers aside, the covers are extremely problematic, and the other thing that bothers me about them is that women rarely have pants. That's probably,
Yeah.
and they are over-sexualized, but a lot of that's marketing, but as somebody who grew up also reading the same books in the 80s, where I was largely absent, I was tied up in the tower waiting to get rescued, or I was being raped and left for dead on the side of the road. And that was essential, or I was already being starved, but I didn't really remember things. And I had no way in. And even though there are particular problems with some of the urban fantasy, at least I'm there.
Right.
And I do notice that there's been a shift, kind of a subtle shift in the last 5 years that I've been reading fantasy, where the whole dichotomy of the storylines is that it's not so much more an epic with the farm boy and stone and more, or even like George Martin, that's still an epic, it's still kind of that same kind of thing. But as more and more women get published and more women come out reading fantasy, you see a lot of the different structure of that. I'm thinking about Mary Kowal's Shades of Milk and Honey. That one for, zombies in Seattle, and her son.
Very pretty.
I mean, a 30-year-old woman protagonist in the something. But what I noticed is you guys see that you see a shift in even the structure of the stories as more and more women of fantasy.
I know for myself that I've made a point of having protagonists in my books intentionally to give the other side of the story, balance things out. You have, I like to jump from head to head, and so I can have the male protagonist and the female protagonist right next to each other, and one chapter will be through one of their eyes, and the other chapter will be through the other one's eyes, and you see how they see the same events very differently. And that, I think, it's been a learning experience for me too, to try and take that other perspective and do it in a way that's convincing and get inside somebody's head and realize. The hardest part, I think, is when you try and write a female character who does something stupid or makes a mistake, and you know, part of you, as a male author, part of you rebels against doing that because I don't want women to think that I think that they're stupid. But the reality is, everybody's stupid. We all do stupid stuff sometimes, and to not put those things in is just as bad as not having a at all. You want a character who's fleshed out and real, or else people won't relate to them and won't resonate. And so that's something that's changing more and more. And one of the beauties of epic fantasy is that you have multiple points of view, so that you can have a bunch of female characters and a bunch of male characters. Robert Jordan is one who had tons of female characters, and you may not always approve of how they act, but again, that's reality. So.
I think everyone sort of avoids, you know, you want to treat people as people, but then if you're trying to overcome other things in society, it goes right the other way. I was thinking of one great example of getting a flawed character, right, was John Barley, Wizard, and Sharako Jones. I mean, it was one of those two characters like, yeah, okay, I'm there. She's got problems. She's not doing what she does. Yeah, I write the stories I write because I want to see me.
Question over here.
Why sci-fi seems to be lagging behind.
In the sense that I think that that you see female characters that are portrayed.
I don't know. I like most of my horror reading was in the 80s, and so female characters were usually eaten.
Well, it's a purpose, I think, yeah. Like young women.
True. But you know, again, I go back to Sigourney Weaver. You know, like she was like Sigourney Weaver and what was her name? Sarah Connor. I forget the actress's name, but like you know, you see these female characters that like kicking as much ass as any male character ever has, and doing it in a way that's convincing. Part of that is that in science fiction, like the technology playing field a little bit, or like you know that extra few pounds that the man can lift that the woman can't, like kind of becomes less of an issue when you're holding an M16 or a laser gun. So I don't know. I think that you can find examples in all genres of really strong female characters and examples of people who get it wrong or don't have it. And that it really depends on the writer, and you can seek it out. It's out there. It's sometimes hard to find others.
I think you have a point when you talk about like slasher movies of the 80s and maybe the late 70s, because in those movies, they're basically variations on Little Red Riding Hood. And Little Red Riding Hood is the hero who kills the wolf. The wolf is the Freddy Krueger or whoever. And so it's the girl, it's the young woman who is pure of heart, who has not had sex with her buddies, who is going to defeat the bad guy. It's not going to be the guy who does it. And so I think there was a lag, because I think there was a time when we had a lot of horror movies of this particular kind, which had the woman being victorious, more or less. The guy wouldn't really die if he come back in the sequel. And we're still struggling with that science fiction fantasy.
I'm at the end of my phone.
I think probably